This special meeting of the Courthouse Square Historic Preservation Commission is called to order, and I see an agenda before us with one item because it's a special meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The agenda is approved, and now it is time to look at case number 389. Kate, will you talk to us about that for a minute?
Okay, so we're here at this special meeting to consider the installation of a stage at 1210 Harrison Avenue in the Harrison Yard area. The applicant requests approval to install a stage within the existing entertainment dining venue. The new stage will feature a sloped roof and vinyl-clad sidewalls with a rear wall comprised of sound treatment panels set inside a frame. The applicant seeks to resolve ongoing issues with noise complaints and citations with outdoor live entertainment at the venue. The proposed vinyl material will weatherproof the stage. The sidewalls and ceiling will be covered in acoustically absorbent curtains. The rear wall is made entirely of sound treatment panels. These elements and the relocation of the stage to face away from the neighboring condos are an attempt to satisfy the sound ordinance requirement. The design guidelines do not directly address this type of structure. At 18 feet in height, the proposed stage enclosure is not significantly taller than the existing buildings on the site, the bathrooms, bar, etc. However, if the structure were a permanent building, the proposed materials would not meet the recommendations of the design guidelines for new construction. The commission might consider the stage a utilitarian building in the district, one built for function rather than design, with limited detail and a practical use. That the building is low scale, like the existing structures, and is not built on a large stage platform is wise, considering the scale of the other structures on site. The applicant also benefits from the location of the site. It's directly adjacent to a non-contributing resource and is largely surrounded by non-contributing buildings, and is not visible from the square or the downtown core. This is the first instance in which a structure of this type has been reviewed for long-term use in the Courthouse Square district. If the commission wishes to approve the design, any approval should be for the stage only. The provided site plan did have some other elements that I think go with the next phase of what Griffin's building, and so we're not approving or denying any of that here today, just the proposed stage. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have, and I'm sure Griffin has some things he'd like to say.
Thank you, Kate. Do we have questions of Kate? Or Lori Beth or Taylor, do you have any questions of Kate?
If I may, just real quick, I want to, just for this commission and for it to be sort of for everyone that might be observing, we are not reviewing land use, appropriateness of a stage and sound and music in the downtown district, all that this commission is just reviewing the stage and its appropriateness within the historic downtown district. Okay.
That's a good point. The reason I mentioned the reason for installing the stage, I think, is just because it's not, we wouldn't normally approve like an outbuilding or something clad in vinyl. I mean, it doesn't meet the design guideline recommendations for materials, but on the other hand, the structure is being built for a specific use. So it's like we're kind of weighing, you guys are weighing that difference. And I'm not sure if there's a way to mitigate its appearance or, I don't know. So that's kind of what we're doing.
Yeah, here. I just wanted to say that so that people, a lot of people are paying attention to this, right? Outside of the historic aspect of this.
Right.
And that everyone understands and maybe paying attention to it, that it's not, we're not reviewing things that are related to ordinance and law enforcement and sound ordinance and all that stuff.
Exactly.
Historic.
Right, we are not a use committee, we are an aesthetics committee charged with making sure the historic square stays beautiful, but this is an unusual circumstance in that because of a new city ordinance, something needs to be created here to mitigate the noise for the neighbors. Any other questions for Kate? Griffin, do you want to tell us about it?
Thank y'all for having me and doing a special meeting. Obviously, we're under a time crunch just with football season coming up. It is basically what you see is what we're gonna do. We are open to suggestions. This is kind of a temporary structure, but in reality would be permanent. When we do our next phase, we could change it, do what we need to do. If there was a aesthetics, I am not a structural engineer or anything like that, but we did hire Vault and they can answer any questions, but this really is just to appease our neighbors and be in compliance with the sound.
I understand. I think that what's working in your favor, this is not attractive, but what's working in your favor is that nobody really sees it. It's on a one-way down a hill. It's not one of our typical decisions that we would have to make. So I think that certainly helps us to make our decision as to the impact to the historic square, in my opinion, is small.
And I think, you know, down the road, in our next phase, we probably would have move our fence up to the street and have landscaping similar to what we have on the Nuke side that would also eventually hide it more.
So this is just for the stage and 3 walls that enclose the stage.
That's correct.
Ben, you look like you're ready to say something.
Let me turn this mic on. Griffin, the existing stage that you have right now, does it have lights on it?
We do use lights, yeah.
Is it similar lighting to what's in this package?
Pretty much.
Yes and no. Yes and no. So this would be something outside of this conversation, but I'd like to follow up on that with you before the lights are installed. We can talk about that after here.
Sure.
After this. Thank you.
So that's something that we don't need to discuss. The lights is something else. Okay.
Can I ask a question about, you said the next phase. So perhaps what you're doing now with this stage might totally change in the future with your next stage?
Financially, we would love to use what we buy right now. This is a huge expense for our business to fix a problem that we have. And that stage may move back or right or left a little bit, but that's probably where it's going to stay, just mainly because with the panels, shooting it that way goes straight through the Nukes parking lot, won't bounce off any buildings, that kind of thing. But the next phase obviously would be astroturfing the rest of the parking lot, having some more bathrooms, another bar, maybe some other attractions for customers. And so at that point, we would fence in the entire parking lot with a 6-foot fence, add landscaping, you know, basically iliagnus that grow fast and tall and kind of cover all the way down the Harrison Avenue and the rest of Nukes. I think that's Tyler. So when I say second phase, I really mean just turfing the rest of the lot, adding more space for people and that kind of
And I have one more question. When you go to this expense and you build this stage, how sure are you that it's going to control the sound that you've been worried so much about?
We've been assured by modeling of engineers that this would contain almost all the sound behind us, which is where most of our complaints are coming from. You know, obviously it is directing that sound towards Nukes or University Avenue. Luckily, there's no residents on that side, hopefully. But we will still have to be within the 70 decibel rule, and we'll accomplish that by angling and buying certain speakers that, you know, shoot down into the crowd. Right now, we're using the same stuff we have in the bar that just goes everywhere.
Okay, thank you.
Lori Beth or Taylor, do you have any questions for Griffin?
I don't think I have any questions other than, Griffin, you mentioned something about this potentially being temporary and y'all changing the aesthetics of it. I gotta be honest about it. The aesthetics of it are what is really bothering me. Personally, I don't have much of a problem with the idea of a stage, but from a look standpoint, you know, I know a render is obviously not really a great representation of what is ultimately going to be there, but that is a pretty big concern of mine with respect to this.
So, you know, almost, I couldn't give you a percent, but almost all entertainment venues have to use a trellis system, whether it's vertical or horizontal, to hold lights, speakers. That's just really the universal equipment to hang things easily. It's light and, you know, can fix together and hold a load. So even if we come back to y'all and y'all have suggestions that we're, you know, open to looking to, we would probably still have a structure that may be built out of wood and painted. It would still have a roof. You know, originally when we came in front of y'all, it was a stage with the roof structure, but inside that, we're still gonna have to have those metal trellis to hold our speakers. If you go in any restaurant bar in Oxford, you're probably gonna see that type of equipment. It isn't obviously seen because it's inside and we're in a unique situation here, but to put on a show, we do have to use those rectangular trellis systems to hang lights and speakers and run wire. But we would be, obviously, we could enclose that with something that looks more sophisticated and beautiful.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at. I understand the issue with the trellis system. I think whatever it's clad in is kind of more important from my perspective.
We're happy to, you know, create a green space or, you know, something that, again, hides it down the road. That this is just our quick solution to try and fix a problem. But we want to be, you know, we're on the square.
Stuart?
Yeah, along those lines, I was gonna ask, I mean, what's the thought process behind what is essentially a naked truss rigging system, not setting it within a structure? I mean, keeping this temporary versus a permanent stage?
Well, for one, it's temporary so that we can move it, take it down, change it if we need to. You know, we have to go, I think, back through site plan to do all the things for the next phase. So this is kind of what we're throwing, you know, technically even a piece of furniture that in our current phase versus what we get approved and adhere to all the regulations that the city goes through on site plan.
Yeah, I mean, I echo everyone else. It's really ugly. I mean, it's really bad, but it's hidden, it's down in a hole. It's, I guess, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's your business if you want to have that there. I would hope that you would try and dress it up at some point and make it feel a little more permanent and substantial and less temporary. Some of the questions I've heard down the road, how do we approve that? I mean, if we approve it, we're approving it as is, where it is, with no hope for anything changing in the future. I mean, we expect it is this forever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Are y'all?
Absolutely, that's correct. So if you recall, originally there was a site plan and materials that were going to be used for the entire parking lot site that came before this commission. That might have predated you, Stuart, but I think others might remember that. And then as that changed for whatever reasons that it did, that, you know, the new plan came back. And so as they move on to the next phase, they'll have to come back and they'll have to bring those elements. So, you know, if that's a relocation of the stage from one place to another, I think that would have to be shown and that would have to be indicated as part. And I think Griffin intends to do that.
Yeah.
So is there a way that we can approve this until we are saying we're looking at it again? Is there a way for us to grant a temporary approval is what I'm asking staff?
Well, I think he's asking you to approve it in the location and in the manner that he's proposing it right now. If that is to change, then he would have to come back and would have to present that to you.
Right.
So I think you are approving it, you know, when saying it temporary, because he may decide at some point it's working out great in this particular location and then it stays in this particular location.
And looks exactly like that forever, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with everyone who's spoken, it is unattractive, and we would not approve it next to First National. But it's a very different situation, non-contributing, surrounded by non-contributing, down in a hole in a one-way street. So
That was previously used as a parking lot.
Yeah,
Right, a parking lot.
yeah, I mean, to me, it's approvable, and, I mean, ultimately, it's reversible, you know, it's not a permanent change to anything that's contributing. You know, that's one of the guidelines we are to review things by. Is this easily reversible? Absolutely, and it never was historic anyway. It's been an empty gravel lot. I mean, I guess I shouldn't say never, but not in a long time.
I also think that it adds to the diversity of Oxford. We don't have anything like that around, and I think that it will offer options that we don't have right now. So I think it would be good for families, for being outside at this time, and like you say, you
I would
don't
add,
see it.
we do have the Oxford Blues Festival booked in September, and without pulling this off, they're gonna be over the sound ordinance, and whether or not we get a ticket, I don't, I've gotten tickets already, so I'm pretty sure we'll get one.
Are the rules different for a festival, like double decker or what we have Saturday night on the new Jackson
Yes.
Avenue, which looks great, by the way? That there is a different rule if it's a festival? Okay.
Yep.
All right, I wondered that, just about the sound.
Well, anything put on by the city doesn't have to adhere to the rules specifically. We would have to have a special permit, which we found out when we went in front of the city last week, that we can't get a special permit for those things because it's private property. So it's really only for public property, that, you know, city property, that the double decker and those things happen. So that's why we're trying to find a way to still do those kind of things, but be within the guidelines.
Okay. Taylor or Lori Beth, do you have anything else?
I'd like to go back to the kind of what y'all were talking about with Ben about if approval is granted on this, can it be granted with conditions? Say you got to come, this has got to be changed in several months' time, or you know, that it's going back to the look thing. You know, it concerns me that if this thing's approved here today, that it could just be the way it's proposed to be built and stay that way indefinitely.
Ben?
Taylor, it's a good question. I would certainly, this commission and most of our commissions have granted approvals conditionally, you know, with a set of standards. I would encourage you to be as specific as you can, because you know, in this instance, it might be challenging to say, well, in 5-6 months, you have to come back with a more permanent structure, because his expansion might not be planned for, you know, 12 months from now. And, you know, but I think the answer is yes, you can approve it with conditions, but I would encourage you to be mindful and specific at the same time.
Sorry, go ahead, Taylor.
Kind of to that point, what I was thinking, if Griffin's doing this in multiple stages, that there be some condition about it being brought up the next time he's bringing something forward on the next stage of the project, let's say.
Yeah, I think that would be acceptable.
Did you mention, Griffin, did you mention like putting landscaping around it for the time being, or is that down the road?
I would have to come back in front of the other commission to move the fence and put the landscaping in, but I would be willing to go ahead and do that for the Harrison side, which is where you see it most visibly, I guess. Again, we're happy to work with the city and whoever on, you know, if you guys want to send you an email of the things you wished it looked like. Again, we're just trying to solve a problem. We don't want to keep throwing money at it, but you know, I would love for it to look prettier, or we could case that in. It is a massive structure because of the sound side, but you know, if we need to, all the panels on the back and the vinyl wrap could be different colors. different colors. They could be logoed. We could put mural on them, like we've done on the bathrooms. We could, you know, we're definitely open to suggestions. And as far as a time frame, you know, it's just me saying it, but as soon as the stormwater detention is checked off, and then we take that through the site plan of maybe 45 days, and then you get to start. So, I mean, yeah, I think within a year, this will be changing again.
So if the only condition that we put on approval today had to do with time, would that satisfy the staff's requirements? What if we said we are approving it just as drawn for 8 months or whatever arbitrary amount of time? Because we know that Griffin is coming back for the next stage, and also by then you'll see how it works and if it needs to be moved, and we'll also see what it looks like.
Well, I think maybe the way that Taylor actually posed it earlier, that maybe when the next phase is presented to the city for consideration, that the stage shall be reconsidered at that time, or should be a point of discussion at that time to allow for the evaluation by this commission. I know I'm it's a run-on sentence here, but to allow for this commission to consider, you know, the actuality, like now that it's in place, you've had a period of time to be able to understand it and see it, because I think there are elements there that will, to Lori Beth's point earlier, screen it. There's an existing tree that's right there by the staircase that I think kind of covers some of that structure from one side. And you know, you'll have a better understanding of maybe where landscaping ought to be if it were to remain in place. I think so you can condition it so that way the next time that this is brought up for consideration, that the stage be part of that discussion.
Okay.
As opposed to saying
As
4
opposed to
months.
saying you have to come back in 8 months.
Right.
Right. Would anybody like to make a motion and attempt to word that?
Well, I just want to speak on that real quick, though. That's kind of a hanging contingency. And it technically would mean that when he comes back, we could say, you're no longer allowed to have that stage there.
I'm just I'm not saying, I'm trying to open
Right, I
that
understand.
condition up so that way it's brought up for consideration. I think he has an approval.
Yeah, I think it should be that. I don't think it should be, we're approving it for a certain amount of time, and then we may disapprove in 8 months when he comes back.
Yeah, I want to make sure that I'm clear that, as I said before, what he's requesting is this stage to be located. He's saying that he believes that it's a temporary location, but that's solely up to him to make that determination if
Yeah,
he
that's
decides
what
to
I
move
would-
that again.
Yeah.
But you may say you would like to bring it up for consideration because of landscaping elements that might need to be incorporated to help screen it. I think part of that might be difficult because of the location of the stage. There's already there's some structure that's underneath, and I don't know that it would allow for landscaping, but those are things that we would need to figure out as part of the site plan design. Is it part of all of those things that would come back, but it would be a way for you to consider screening options now that it's in place. But he's asking you, as he's proposed, to put the structure in the location that it is as it's designed, and it can stay there permanently.
Yeah,
as well.
And so that's where you were saying be very specific in what it is. You know, zero in on what it is we want to review, not,
Correct.
we may just review the whole thing. That would be unfair, and I don't think we should be doing that.
Correct.
So the motion should be specific to, we want to reevaluate it for additional screening and elements for beautification attached to the approved structure.
I agree.
Something along those lines.
Additional screening and, say again, Stuart?
Beautification.
Yeah, yeah.
Beautification. What about positioning?
I think ultimately that kind of needs to be up to the business, because we're trying to work with what
Up
we
to
have.
sound, the sound.
You know, I would love for it to be in the nuke side pointed the other way, but that would really upset some people.
But if he does move it, that would trigger it having to come
Yes,
back before us
that's
anyway.
right.
So that would sort of open the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah, because,
All right.
you know, what you've articulated, this commission has articulated, the location right there kind of works because it sits down, it's screened because of the hillside that's there. You put it on the other side, now all of a sudden it's right on the street, it's completely visible from multiple sides.
Okay. Got it.
So is the trigger point when he submits for site plan for phase 2 or prior to that, or?
Yeah, he's gonna have to come back for several elements for the, you know, the next phase of that site plan regardless.
Come back before us.
Correct.
Yeah. So on his next COA application is when we would want to do that review. Okay.
Great.
For example, he's indicated, even on the plan that's in your packet, I mean, he's indicated a fence. I mean, while it will be consistent with what's there, that's something, and we might administratively approve that. There are a variety of elements that require approval by this commission, either in person or through staff level approval.
Okay, so I'll motion to approve, conditioned that the applicant understands upon his next COA application for the site, this commission will, I'll say may, review the stage as approved today for additional screening and beautification.
Cool.
Additional screening and beautification. We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Including Taylor and Lori Beth. We have a motion, we have a second. Hearing no discussion. All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Can you tell how Lori Beth?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
So that's all in favor.
So we have approved the motion, and Griffin, you understand
Yes,
what's
thank you.
to come. So we'll see you again, and good luck.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
May it be nice and quiet.
Yeah.
Okay. Nothing from staff. Oh, other than,
So give it a second.
everyone, please remember that our later meeting was rescheduled to Thursday, the 9th at noon due to Labor Day.
I didn't know that.
So that
Our
will be
next
the next meeting of this commission.
Is
Yes.
September 9 at noon, and that's a Thursday, and that is after.
After Labor Day, yes, and we have one case on the agenda for that meeting.
Okay.
So it should be short.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kate and Ben. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned.
Aye.